Cheating. Even though it's something that we hate, there's something about it that drives the minority of us to do it. But I think I finally figured out some of the reasons as to why people cheat, and it's not as deep or as complex as people would like to believe, because very rarely are things ever that complicated. So let me bring up the reasons I believe people cheat. Cheating form number 1, because it's funny. Out of all the forms of cheating, this is the one that I would clearly say is very much malicious, because this one, there's normally a clear plan and intent of humiliating your fellow player or opponent. And this kind of cheating, this is mostly the behavior that you tend to see in children, where the whole goal isn't necessarily to win, but to entertain yourself. And even though this little prank might be a little bit funny for the individual, remember, sometimes this prank is done towards your quote-unquote friend. And this is the kind of bullshit that has led me to never touch Battleship ever again. Cheating form number 2, to save face. When people pick up a new game, it is very natural for them to immediately suck from the start. But for some people, that can be extremely embarrassing. And this is the kind of behavior that you normally tend to see mainly within first-person shooters. This type of cheating is actually opposite compared to the first one. The whole purpose behind this type of cheating is to save yourself from being humiliated. You also tend to see this kind of behavior with some Twitch streamers where all of a sudden having millions of people watching you, the last thing you want to do is now show other people that you suck. Can't say the same for that fat ugly Asian bitch that got caught cheating on CSGO that one time. But to some people, losing means failure, and failure is humiliating. And who knows if this is the reason as to why Riolu started cheating. Cheating form number 3, to protect one's ego and or image. Now that I believe that this is the cheating form that we could pin to Riolu, we can now go in depth about it. Able for us to do that, I believe we need to bring up Mark Rosewater and the 3 different player archetypes. If you don't know who this man is, I'm just going to make things quick. This guy is the OG card game designer for Magic the Gathering. I believe he's still working on it, which is cool. And over the many years, he would closely study the players subconsciously and notice specific tendencies and characteristics within these players. However, these characteristics are not only just found in Magic, you can also find these characteristics within people who play video games or any kind of game, period. He called them psychographs, and with these psychographs, he gave them names. I will change a couple of them because it does get confusing. But first, we will start off with Tori. Tori is the kind of player who cares about the experience and the emotion that it brings between the player and the game. And if this game is capable of being shared between other players, then Tori also cares about the player-to-player experience. And because Tori cares so much about the player-to-player experience, they also care about whether or not you are having a good time playing the game as they are, hoping for you to also be emotionally attached or emotionally invested. Then there's Jamie. Jamie is the kind of player that cares about the mechanical interaction and discovery between the player and the game, and all that the game has to offer. In other words, if the game is Pandora's box, Jamie is the kind of player that loves to molest the shit out of Pandora's box to see everything that it has to offer, and who also finds enjoyment in showing off their discovery to their fellow players. Then there's Spike. Spike, through what Mark believes, is about a player trying to prove something, which means Spike is a little bit more competitive and accolade driven. And able for a Spike to prove their worth, they eventually do it through means of via game knowledge and perfection of the game design and executions. Essentially, they tend to find enjoyment through mastering and figuring out the limits between themselves as players and the game and its mechanics. If this all sounds familiar to you, now we can finally talk about Riolu. He is most likely a Spike. Spike, very much not like the other 2 psychographs, is one that has a very much an outcast mindset. The rebel, if you will. Spike characteristics can come across as selfish and singular focused. But there is another way of showing off your skills and mastering of a game, and sometimes that is through pure dominance, aka proving that you are the best. Riolu is very much a pure Spike, and proving to the world that he is indeed the best. But as we know through history, being the best is only temporary, and you only become a legend when you retire from the game. And showing people just how long you dominated for when you were playing the game. Because how long you dominated for will always be your lasting legacy, in which the unfortunate part is that the lasting legacy of Riolu will be how he cheated. And it's weird that history tends to show that 50% of cheaters are usually people that we would already crown as great. So why do they? I believe it is form number 3. To protect something they believe belongs to them. Whether it be through ego, through image, for anything. Because most likely, Riolu eventually told himself, I want to be the best, I proved that I was the best, and I intend to keep it that way. And sometimes an ego comes attached with an image. And for Riolu, his image was simply being the best of Trackmania. And because he was trying to prove his worth through how long he dominated, I know what I'm about to say is blasphemous, but for me, this kind of cheating normally isn't intended to be malicious. And I know that sounds like horseshit because there is a malicious side effect to his actions and such behavior. But when your ego is wrapped around the accolades and accomplishment that Spike got for you, being number 2 isn't an option. And for Riolu holding this fake invisible trophy that says number 1, I bet just the thought of someone else holding the number 1 trophy, I bet that frightened him. And hey, this nigga put 10 years of cheating into protecting this pathetic thing, but hey man, I fucking respect that grind. I don't like it, I respect it. And there's so many niggas pretending that like they can't even fathom as to why someone would cheat, especially for this long. It's like at some point you need to keep up the facade, bruh. Yeah, and I hope my theoretical reasons sort of help clear shit up. But something that Riolu needs to understand is that through defending this title, he broke the NCAA rule. In video game terms, broke the bro code of sportsmanship. Like in the movie 42, he broke an unwritten rule. And I'm gonna quote one of the characters from that movie. You break rules and get away with it, people think you're smart. You break an unwritten rule, you'll be an outcast. However, Wirtual did say something in his biggest cheating scandal in Trackmania history video that was definitely spot on. Because I do believe that it is extremely naive to put so much blind faith to uphold millions of strangers across the internet who do play this game to a rule that doesn't really exist in context of video games as it does in real life sports, unless the devs put in something like an anti-cheat to help mitigate the problem. Yet the only reason why most of us don't cheat is because we still care, even though subconsciously, about the player-to-player experience. And in doing so, we do not want to spoil that experience for the other players. Another part of it is that we do like to live under this kind of bullshit illusion we like to call fair. But the only way for things to be fair in video games is that everyone starts off on a so-called even playing field, which I guess it's fair. Don't get me wrong, I am not here to act all high and mighty because I have also cheated or used exploits in single player video games, pick your poison. But that is kind of what I'm trying to allude to, is that we are people that will cheat in single player games because we understand that we are not sacrificing someone else's enjoyment. And that is the main thing that we hate about cheating. You decide to ignore/hurt other people's experience to improve yours. But that is why I brought up the 3 psychographs earlier, because Spike is not only the psychograph that ignores the player-to-player experience, it feels like it damn right removes it from the equation. Remember, the goal of Spike is to master the game. But the moment people figured out that Riolu cheated, it pretty much removes the master title. And he did all of this just to put up a facade, and got undeserved praise for it. After Wirtual put out his second video on this entire matter, I'm not gonna lie, I respect the grind that Riolu was willing to do. But it does make me laugh, knowing that he had to give up dignity and respect to protect his own ego. Well, enjoy being ostracized, bitch. I mean, look, there had to be a trade-off somewhere. But seriously, if Riolu or Wirtual ever sees/reacts to this, at some point, the fact that Riolu decided to look at the number 1 status of the game the same way Gollum looked at the One Ring, when does the game start playing you and not the other way around? The fact that your ego is attached to something that doesn't matter outside of your own community, and you decide to gamble it on false accolades, essentially shitting on the people who spent just as much effort on the game as you did cheating. It's kind of funny, but a slap in the face. I am not surprised that he will be ostracized for an extremely long while. Or especially when the people of your community feel like you haven't gotten the necessary punishment for it. And this is kind of what parents were afraid of, this idea that you are going to become so emotionally attached to a video game that you now form this unhealthy relationship with it. And as someone who has also had an unhealthy relationship with video games, I understand that it's very difficult for the individual to recognize just how bad their addiction is. And honestly, one thing that you can do when you do recognize that you have an addiction is to at the very least try to limit yourself, right? So I think some niggas just need to take a dry week. A dry week is essentially just saying step away from the game for like a good minute. And after taking that week break, just come back and you'll have a whole new appreciation for it. But the whole point of the dry week is to, at the very least, maintain some semblance of a healthy relationship with the product you're addicted to. And it also helps with your self-control. This is something I learned from watching a YouTube channel called Whiskey Tribe, where, guess what? It's about whiskey drinkers. And, they also apply this technique to have a healthy relationship with alcohol. But back to Riolu. And after watching Wirtual's video on him, it looks like he's definitely was trying to make a comeback by pretending to be 92 Bob. And I think a lot of people were shocked that he was willing to be incognito. And I'm like, just look at the landscape, retards. And look, I do respect the grind of him trying to win back his titles. The problem is, he's also the kind of nigga that's walking around with corner horse stank to his name. Look, at the end of the day, I don't really care. The only reason why I cared in the moment was because I watched a video by a nigga that I sometimes enjoy watching from time to time. But the moment I'm done making this video, I'll fucking move on with my life. But I'll just say this to anybody else who considers cheating. Just please remember this. What would Jesus do? Hey, I don't know how to end this, bruh. Either I sound preachy or I sound like an idiot. And as far as I'm concerned, people do not like listening to those kind of niggas. It's just, I don't know why people want to believe that cheating is this complex thing that only Cthulhu worshippers will understand. I guess I'm just going to reiterate what I said. Please figure out a way to have a healthy relationship with video games and do not have a video game become your world. And also, if you are going to cheat, go ahead and cheat. Just don't be surprised when niggas want to make an example out of you. And I guess I do have a way of ending this video because Wirtual has come up with a couple of videos recently about the whole situation as a whole. And I guess we're going to talk about the Q&A he did. So recently Wirtual sort of did a live stream Q&A about the whole Trackmania Conman video. And I feel like there was a couple questions that were asked that were good. Just a handful. The rest of them were trash. So we're going to go by one. I'm going to answer it in the way that I feel like I would have done it. But here we go. Question 1. Will Riolu ever apologize? I hope so. But it has to be on his terms. Because I think right now he doesn't feel as if he's done nothing wrong. Which is normal behavior for cheaters. Question 2. If Riolu is no longer cheating on his alt accounts, what's the problem? And again, I feel like this is something that I've answered earlier. People just do not believe that he has had the proper punishment considering how long he has cheated for. Now a couple questions personal for Wirtual. I do not care. Stream in the description if I remember to put it there. God, a lot of these questions suck dick. You could probably tell that I'm only twisting some of the questions I feel that are interesting for me to make a video out of. Finally, an interesting one. Should Nadeo do something about Riolu and his somewhat return to the game? They already have, which is why Wirtual kind of made the video, hoping that Nadeo will maybe do something a little bit more drastic about the rules and updates. But I think they've made their stance. But time will tell if that will change. P.S. It did. Question number 4. Why was Riolu trying to sneak his way back into Trackmania? Was it for the fame? I don't believe that he was trying to sneak back into Trackmania for the fame. I personally believe that it was a way for him to restore his honor and to prove to people that he still is one of the best players of the game, which is very spike of him. But also look at the landscape. I think it's very obvious because of the whole cheating scandal as to why he would go incognito. But the truth is that most players that do this kind of thing for so long normally have a long-term plan. And I don't know exactly what his plan was or what kind of grand return he was thinking of receiving. But as far as I'm aware, the fact that he is the only person that hasn't quite come clean about cheating, despite the information being out there, is also part of the reason why I feel like certain players like him have an unhealthy relationship with video games. But as you can kind of tell with the questions, we're sort of just dancing in circles, answering the same questions over and over and over again, and me repeating the same shit over and over and over again. So we're just going to move on. But I think one of the most important questions that was asked, unfortunately got asked very early a part of the stream, and that was, can Riolu be redeemed? And the answer is Though that depends on you. Are you willing to forgive him if he is someone who's willing to apologize and clean himself up? I understand that the wound that he made can be very deep, especially for the Trackmania community, and you may not be able to forgive him right away. But all I ask of you, if he does clean up his act and does apologize, is that I hope that you are willing to be the bigger person, and please act like adults and try not to hold grudge, because I'm going to say the words that people do not like to hear. Particularly gamers do not like to hear. At the end of the day, it is just a video game. And everything that he did it for was just bragging rights. So from an adult to an adult, act like one. And don't stoop down to his level. Because holding on to anger isn't healthy either. And there's power in forgiveness. And forgiveness is a two-way street. And I wish one day you will let it go. But that's just what I think. So next time, if you think I'm full of shit, just comment down below. But at the same time,
go fuck yourself.